Good day. So we are now in the period of Lent, as defined in most of the Christian world, notably the Roman Catholic Church. The date of Ash Wednesday is determined by the date of Easter Sunday. And Easter Sunday is always the first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox. And the vernal equinox is the first day of spring. And the first day of spring is March 21. So, Easter Sunday is always the first Sunday after the first full moon after March 21. 2 days before Easter Sunday is Good Friday, and 46 days before that is Ash Wednesday. Why are there 46 days between Ash Wednesday and Good Friday and not 40 days? Because the Sundays between Ash Wednesday and Good Friday are not counted as days of Lent. Every Sunday is regarded as a celebration of the Lord's resurrection in the Roman Catholic Church and many Protestant churches as well. And of course the Orthodox Church. The Orthodox churches derive their Lenten observance by using a different set of principles. So I am confining my discussion to Lent in the Western world, particularly in the Roman Catholic Church. The early Christians in Rome found that they had to find a way to communicate the truth of the resurrection of Jesus Christ to the pagan Romans, who had a god or goddess for just about every season and other things. They had a goddess of spring named Eostre, E-O-S-T-R-E, who was worshipped on the first full moon after the first day of spring. In those days, where just about everyone did farming, spring represented new life as the trees started to spring new leaves as well as blossoms, telling of fruits that would come in about 50 days. As spring is about new life, then the resurrection is also about new life. And it would also be a time of baptisms, because by being baptized, one is born again or gets a new life. So when you're baptized, you're born again, and that also symbolizes new life. That's why at Easter we have baptisms. But for now, we have just begun the time of Lent, which is a time of reflection, confession, and abstinence from sin. No, I am not going to preach to you today. All I have done is to explain the process as simply as I can, or as how I understand it. On the 14th of Nisan on the Jewish calendar, the Jews traditionally hold their feast of the Passover, where the miserable and torturous life of slavery in Egypt, the journey through the wilderness of 40 years, and the triumphal entry into the promised land is recounted with every item of food in the celebration symbolizing some aspect of history. And that is the Passover. And Jesus Christ, being a Jew, attended the Passover on an annual basis. On the night before he died, Jesus turned the Passover into the Holy Eucharist, his body and his blood. Eucharist comes from two Greek words that mean thanksgiving and are used to describe the peak of the Holy Mass, because Jesus Christ gave thanks before he passed around the bread, and he gave thanks before he passed around the chalice filled with wine. This is the history of the Holy Mass as celebrated in the Roman Catholic Church and the Orthodox churches as well. But as the Jews came to understand, the liberation in reaching the promised land was not a case of living happily ever after, as the fairy tales we read as children always end. We are reminded of the atrocities that the Jews underwent in the 1930s and 1940s under Adolf Hitler, with the current situation between Russia and Ukraine. And the emancipation of the slaves in Jamaica was not a one-time event either. Just as with the Jews, it did not translate into living happily ever after as in the fairy tales. After slavery was abolished, there were toll roads for the newly emancipated slaves that they were put in place to force the people back on the estates. And that was after the abolition of slavery. Then when they did not go back to work, of course, you had the Indians, and when that never worked out, they went to bananas. But we also had the Morant Bay Rebellion, speaking about conditions there. Now, as talking about the conditions, that it was not fairy tale. Listen to Harry Belafonte's song. It was also sung by Edric Connor. De, missa de, missa de, missa de, oh. Daylight come and me want go home. I work all night for a drink of rum. Daylight come and me want go home. Pack banana till the morning come. Daylight come and me want go home. De, missa de, missa de, missa de, oh. Daylight come and me want go home. Come, Missa Tallyman, tally me banana. Daylight come and me want go home. And as Edric Connor would sing in his version, no give me such a bunch, me no horse with bridle. Daylight come and me want go home. Me back just a broke with beer exhaustion. Daylight come and me want go home. The significant part of that song is when Harry Belafonte sang, I worked all night for a drink of rum. These were songs that were recorded by Louise Bennett in Jamaica Welfare, and Harry Belafonte was commissioned to sing it. I worked all night for a drink of rum. Every time you want to know why a minimum wage came in Jamaica in 1975, remember that. I worked all night for a drink of rum, packed banana till the morning come. It is now 50 years since Michael Manley first came to power in 1972. Those of us who are old enough to remember the night of February 29, 1972, and the day after, March 1, 1972, recall, no matter what political party the people supported, that there was great jubilation all over Jamaica, as if emancipation had come, albeit for the second time, and a general feeling that from henceforth we would all live happily ever after, as in the fairy tales. 50 years ago, I was 18 years old, just as I am 68 today. 50 years ago, I would have been 19 in 1972, just as I'll be 69 in 2022. I recall the events clearly. I was already out of high school from 1971, and already I had experienced my first job as a clerk at Jamaica Public Service, the Light and Power Company. 2 weeks after Michael Manley came to power, I was employed at Social Development Commission. My point here is that I remember clearly and speak not from research, but from experience. But despite the great rejoicing in 1972, the idea of living happily ever after was not to be. Life is a struggle, and all good gains have to be protected. In a similar manner, we are not good forever just because we went to confession. If that were so, we could indeed live happily ever after, as in the fairy tales. But that is not so, and this is why the Lenten period of reflection is needed, where we evaluate our lives. Have a good day. I'd like to thank Taj Montague, the studio engineer here at St. Michael's Seminary, who is also an accompanist, for backing me up on the keyboard.